This is the third video, the third essential skill for pre-AP, and this has to do with orbital notations, electron configuration, and identifying atoms or ions. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Here's some examples of some electron configuration along with the atoms. So easy enough, you know, if we had blocked out all of this right here, and so you couldn't see what atom it was, we could give you the electron configuration, or we could give you the orbital notation and say which atom is this. If we asked you just which atom it is, you would look at it and say, okay, there's 2 in the 1s, there's 2 in the 2s, and then there's 2 in the 2p. That's 6 electrons. You might do it that way and look at the periodic table. If it's just the atom, the electrons are equal to the protons, so that means that it would have to be carbon. You could also just track it over if you wanted to go in 2p. Oh, that means that there's 1, 2. I move over in p, 2 spaces, 2 elements, and that's carbon. You could do it that way. There's several different ways to do it. Now, let's say we want to make an ion, and we want to be tricky about it. You have to remember, why do atoms form ions? They form ions to become stable and fulfill the octet rule. The octet rule is having 8 electrons in its outermost shell, its valence shell. And the valence shell is just the s and p orbitals, whether it be in the second period, third period, it doesn't matter. Just the s and the p, whatever the last shell is, the last period. So if we make an ion, that means it's going to have the same electron configuration. If it's an ion, it's the same electron configuration as a noble gas. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and you can still see it, but I'm going to bring this electron configuration down right here. And I want you to notice that there is the S and P right here, that they do have 8 electrons. This is a noble gas configuration. So you look at it and say, oh, well, that must be neon. Well, that was great if it was an atom. But if it's an ion, which ion could it be? So I would have to say that it could have been anything below neon. For example, it could be nitrogen 3-, it could be oxygen 2-, it could be fluorine -. And if you remember, for doing this, that the 1s, I'm just going to fill them in below. So there is the, that's the 1s, here's the 2s, and if I just did 3 electrons here, you might say, okay, that's nitrogen, but remember it's nitrogen 3-, which means I would add 3 more electrons. 1, 2, 3, and that makes the same configuration as neon. So this is the hard part. This is what makes this one tricky, is remembering that ions have the noble gas configuration, have the ions have the 8 electrons in their outermost shell. And that's what's going to trip you up on that essential skill. We'll also put some in the multiple choice section, but you have to be able to identify that and write them. All right. If you have any questions on this, please see your teacher. And don't forget, after you've watched these 3 videos, there's also going to be a short quiz online on Schoology. Thank you very much.